It is the love month. So let me count the ways I love Z. I love Z in the morning. I love Z in the afternoon. I love Z in the evening. I love Z in the kitchen. I especially love Z in the bedroom.
Boy, come on, we
Oh,
recording.
excuse me. I'll try. Okay, welcome back to a Mind Transform presents Golden Gems with the Garretts, Marriage Edition.
Woohoo!
Do I even have to say it? Okay, one more time for people that maybe this is your first video. It shouldn't be. Watch the other ones. You're back with your favorite couple. No, that's it. We should be at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Taven Garrett.
And I'm Katrina.
And since this is February, the month of love, we're going to come from our topic for this month is going to be where is the love?
Where is the love? Don't be like talking about my singing, but Roberta Flack, back in the day, where is the love? Come on, that's what I'm doing. So go Google it if you don't know who she is.
I know all you thought Black Eyed Peas. Roberta Flack. And so our topic for today is going to be, are you speaking my language?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes what may happen is you may have your spouse ask this question that Trina asked me often. I never understood it. She would look me directly in my eyes, real face to face, and then say, do you love me? And I'm confused by the question. And then I would start listing off things, and maybe you've been in a similar position. You start listing off things to show that you loved your spouse, and when you look at their face, it's blank. It's not a look of recognition. It's not a look of receiving it. And then you realize that all those things you did for your spouse were nice, but they didn't receive it as you loving them.
So let's talk about receiving love. Oftentimes, it's hard for the spouse to receive love because they have different love languages. And before we go on any further, I just want to call out those 5 love languages and what they mean. One is words of affirmation, verbal compliments that express love and appreciation. The other is physical touch, sexual and non sexual that show love. Another one is quality time, focused and undivided attention spent together. Another one is acts of service, any act that eases the burden of responsibility. And last but not least is receiving gifts, physical symbols that reflect thoughtfulness and effort. 5 love languages again: words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and receiving gifts.
And so early on in our marriage, what would happen is I would love Trina the way that I wanted to receive love, which is usually going to be physical touch, affection, things like that. Trina liked acts of service. So Trina would come in with bags. She went to the grocery store and she would come in with bags and she would walk past the living room in our house where I'm sitting down watching TV. She would put the bags in the kitchen. She'd walk out, stop, look at me. I look at her. And then she proceeded to go get the rest of the bags. Now she's getting ready to cook dinner. What she wanted in that moment was for me to get up and help ease the burden on her. All I'm thinking about is after dinner, she would cook. I'm like, come sit down on the couch. We would snuggle, cuddle. I'd hold her arm. We'd sit close. And I'm thinking, I'm getting all the kudos points for being a loving spouse because I'm giving her quality time and affection. And in her mind, while all those things were nice and she enjoyed them in the moment, I had already missed the mark because I had an opportunity to love her with her acts of service and ease the burden, and I didn't.
So that was what I call love bank. So he says he got kudos. He felt like he got kudos or made deposits into my love bank based off of how he was loving me. And what it was he was making a deposit, but it was in his own account. It wasn't in mine. So when I looked at my account, he was in the negative. He was in the red. He owed me some love, you know? And so that's what we do. You know, it's only natural for us to love from the lens that we know how to love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for us to love from the lens of how someone else expects to be loved because it's only natural that we lean to our own understanding. And like the word says, even the word says, trust in the Lord and lean not to your own understanding. But yet when we love our spouse, we lean to our own understanding. And that's how we get we get crossed up or confused thinking that we're loving and we're really not. And so that's our challenge to you who are listening, to understand what is your spouse's love language. Like, sit down and talk with them. And, you know, there's a visual I got when he was talking. Like, maybe you create some little jars that say love banks so that your spouse, when they're loving you and you're receiving it, you remember to deposit a coin so that into that little bank so that they'll know that, yes, that was, I got some points for that, so that they can start to know this. Because, you know, sometimes we think we're loving, but we're missing the mark. maybe we have something tangible for our spouses to use that we can use collectively to make these deposits into these love banks so that we can know that yes, this is what I counted as receiving and being loved, so that we can learn what it means to love each other. Because guess what? Over time, that love language shifts.
Yep.
So you want that bank to be able to know, is this still counting, or that didn't count this season? So just a suggestion if you're trying to learn your spouse and what counts as love and you really want to understand them.
And never be afraid to have that conversation. Never assume with something that's as precious as love in your relationship, never assume your spouse knows. You can learn some things by watching a person and hearing them, you can, but have those conversations just to be sure, like Trina said, that the mark hasn't shifted, that you're still hitting that mark, that they're still receiving the love. Because if you're loving somebody the way that you loved in the first 4 years of your marriage, but they've shifted, and now you're running into issues and they're asking that question, it's because you didn't shift. So have those conversations. So that's our challenge to you. If you haven't, sit down with your spouse this week. Have that conversation. Ask them if they know how to love you, and then help them learn that. And I love that visual representation of it as well, because then people can see what hit the mark. Because acts of service in the one example I gave was just one example. It could be getting up and helping your spouse cook dinner. It could be taking care of something before your spouse has to do it. There's a lot of different things that fall into each category. And if your spouse knows, positive reinforcement will cause them to continue on with that.
Amen.
Well, we thank you for allowing us to invade your space once again. Take the challenge, talk about love, make sure you're speaking the same language, and we'll be back for another edition of Golden Gems with the Garrett, Marriage Edition.
Woohoo!
Be blessed.